You want to do the clap today?
Okay. It was sharp, but it was tiny.
Yeah.
Oh,
There we go.
That was a good
You
one.
got a little bass in that one.
I know. Yeah.
Well, hey, friends. We are so excited you guys are here with us tonight at Student Night. My name is Nate. This is Stetson, if you haven't met us. And we're saying that because we've got our 6th graders joining us tonight
Yeah.
to check out Student Night. It's kind of a little bit of a preview service, just to see some of what we do.
Right.
And,
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, we're excited you're here. We hope you guys are having fun, enjoyed the food, felt welcome, maybe won a game or two. Yeah.
And we're all together.
We
It's been a
are
while
all
since
together.
we've been
It's
all
been about a
together.
month since we've been all together.
I know, I've missed
Yeah, so
this.
if you're one of these upcoming 6th graders or you're new, typically what we do is once a month we gather here down at Zoe's. We do a big program. Usually we have worship, but the last few months we haven't because our dearly beloved Lenny has transitioned to Nashville. Tears.
Yep.
And so, the only other option was Stetson getting up here to do worship.
You
And,
don't want that.
well, he's actually really good, but I think the more accurate statement is you don't want that.
It's a little both. Trust me.
Yeah. Anyways, so we haven't had that, but we still do the video. This is something we do every week in our house parties, which meet in homes. We're going to have one for you guys. It's going to be kind of our rhythm for the summer. We'll do a big once-a-month gathering. We'll do house parties.
Yep.
And then
We're going to a Rockies game.
paintball, mission trip.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really good. So if you want details, we should have handed out some little flyers to you guys tonight. And we'll let you guys know what's going to be changing for the fall later in the summer.
Yep.
Because we're working on some fun stuff that we think everybody's going to love. And Stetson's looking at me with this look like, what stuff are we working on?
No, I was zoning out, honestly.
Dang it, Stetson. Awesome. Well, we do a segment every student night and every house party called Slices, where Stetson and I find very interesting things happening in the world. They could be stories, news things, interesting facts that have made us laugh, that have amused us, and we bring them to you guys and share a little bit of slice of what's happening. So, Stetson, what's your slice?
You know what K-pop is, right?
Very much so.
Okay, I'm sure most of you
Isn't
know.
that like the dude, what was that song? The Gangnam Style?
I think that's like the beginning of it.
Gangnam Style.
But it's Korean pop.
South
and-
Korean pop, not North Korean.
That's right.
Very big difference between the Koreas.
Yes. So there was this Chinese K-pop game show, where it's like this reality competition where there's this big group of guys, and they all can sing and dance, and over time it gets narrowed down to a few, and like the remaining few, they become a K-pop band.
So isn't this how One Direction started?
I don't know.
They were like American Idol or something like that, and you get to the end. And
I don't know. So in this competition, there was this Russian guy. His name was Vlad, and he was a translator for some of the contestants. But he's kind of a good-looking guy, so the producers of the show, they asked Vlad, it's like, hey, do you want to like jump in and become a contestant? And he's like, sure. He was kind of bored. He didn't have anything going on. And as he started the show, he realized that this really wasn't for him. It's not what he wanted to do. But people loved him, and he can't quit, because if he quits, he's under contract, and he would owe this show like a butt ton of money. And so he's stuck on this show, just miserable, and like doing all these trainings and singings and dancing routines. And he's trying as hard as he can to get off the show. So it got to the point where he's just trying to do poorly to get off the show. So I'm going to read this article. It said, he did lame raps as his fellow competitors pranced and crooned. He begged viewers not to vote for him. Don't love me, he said. Please don't make me go to the finals. I'm tired. But Chinese viewers loved him. He became an internet sensation with legions of fans who just wanted more of sad Vlad. And so for 3 months, episode after episode, his fans voted him forward, prolonging Vlad's misery and captivity. It became an international incident, with Russian bloggers begging the Chinese to stop voting for him. It's not funny anymore. Let Vlad go home. Naturally, he made it to the finals, on which he ate a lemon and frowned at the camera and asked to go home.
that was his final act?
That was his last performance. He ate a lemon on live TV and just asked to go home.
Did he win?
No, he got kicked off.
Oh. Oh, sad Vlad.
Sad Vlad.
That probably made him really happy, though.
Oh, I love that. That made my day.
So the moral of the story is we need to find some TV show to get you on. And just create this whole... Although 3 months away for you kind of might sound like a little bit of a vacation with your young kids at home. Too long?
That's way too long.
What if they could film it all in 2 weeks?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so for mine, like, I don't know if you guys watch a lot of TV or movies. I love watching, like, heist movies.
Those are good.
I know, right? Like Ocean's 11, The Italian Job, all these ones. So, like, I always get, like, really intrigued when I read a story about, like, stolen art and thieves, right? Not that there's anything good about that, but it's kind of cool.
It is.
So there were these 2 Spanish counterfeiters. It was back in 2003. They created this fake version of this painting that was worth something like $5 million, and they planned to sell it as if it were the original thing. And they did this whole claim like, okay, we stole this painting, we did it, and their goal was to rip somebody off, right? So they want to sell it $5 million. Well, they ended up finding this buyer who's an Arabian sheik. They didn't know who he was. They met him through like some middleman, and they convinced this guy to buy the painting for about $1.7 million. And so they sell this painting that was fake to this guy, get the money, right? And they're thinking like, dude, we are geniuses. We just got $1.7 million for this painting that wasn't even real.
Yep.
Then they go to the bank to deposit the money. The money that they were given for this fake painting was counterfeit.
Incredible.
And so these 2 guys got arrested and put in jail for 10 years, not because they sold a fake painting.
Whoa.
It's because they tried to deposit $1.7 million in fake money into a federally secured banking facility over in Spain.
That's awesome.
They could never track down this middleman or this Arabian
The
sheik.
sheik.
Yeah, so you've got to imagine this guy's like, I just ripped these guys off with a bunch of fake money. Joke's on him, though. You gave away all your fake money, got a fake painting.
That's true. At least he's not in jail.
Yeah. Anyways, I love irony. So
Moral of the story, don't be a sheik. Right?
yes. Or be a sheik. Because he ended up kind of a head. I don't. Why is this a
I'm
serpent?
just kidding. I
Innocent
just
as
gave
a
it a
dove?
weird ending.
I know. Whatever, you're bald. We should come to expect this. Dude, what? It makes total sense. You're bald, man. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. This happens a lot, by the way, for all of our upcoming loopers moving into the student ministry.
Yeah.
We love this kind of format
We
of
really
interacting
do.
and talking.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, we're going to move into a time of just having a discussion. For the last several weeks, we've actually been in a series that we've been calling Jesus Is. And Stetson, what's this series been about?
Yeah, so there's a lot of misconceptions out there about who Jesus is. And if someone has a misconception of who Jesus is, it just explodes into this misconception of a whole bunch of things, because Jesus is the core of everything that we believe. Like last week, we talked about how Jesus is the point.
Funny story. Pastor Allen used that same point in
Oh,
his message.
yeah.
I was like,
Awesome.
he stole it from us.
Nice.
He doesn't watch this.
So we thought we would take a really clear look at who Jesus is so that we can have a really true perspective, because it's awesome. Like, the answer to the question of who is Jesus is really, really good.
Yeah, and some of the answers we're looking at, it's not just about, like, character-wise, who is Jesus. We have done that, but probably even more so, like, who is Jesus to us, right? Because at the end of the day, that's, like, really one of the big questions. It's not like, all right, like, who is this Jesus out there? But, like, how do I interact with you? How do you think about me? Like, what is our relationship like? Because that is going to determine really how we pursue him, see him, and live as Christians. So we've done 3 weeks now. This is week 4. And to kick it off, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever had a friend who was mad at you because of something you did?
Absolutely.
All right. Give us the details.
So I have, at oftentimes, inappropriate timing with my sense of humor.
Oh, I know
I-
this one.
No, you don't. I tend to make
Dude,
jokes
we were at
at really inopportune times. But it's kind of how, like, I process my feelings, like, if I'm feeling terrible. Anyway, a friend of mine was going through a really tough time, and they were telling me about it. And I chose that moment to say a really insensitive joke. And after that, we didn't talk for months. and I had to write this person a letter apologizing because I didn't think they would take my phone call. But oh man, I felt so bad. Yep.
You willing to tell us a joke?
No. It's not inappropriate. I'm just embarrassed.
Okay, can you tell me after we stop filming?
Sure.
Yes. I'll tell you guys live.
No, I'm not going to tell you now.
I won't tell them live.
Nope, you lost it.
Man, that story that you just shared, like, I've got so many examples of that in my life, right? Like conflict. Even this last year, like, I had a friend I was really close to. We had some disagreements, some conflict, and it kind of put like our relationship in this position where, like, I was in a place where I just didn't even really want to pursue the relationship anymore. It just kind of felt like it was more work than it was actually worth. And it was like, well, there's an issue here. One of us is mad at the other. I don't really want to deal with it. Right now, I imagine that you guys have probably had that as well. Just show of hands really quick. How many of you guys have had a friend who has been mad at you, or maybe you've been mad at your friend, and it has just totally destroyed the relationship? Raise them high. You can be proud about that. Actually, don't be proud about that. Mourn. Repent. Write a letter. Do what Stetson did. Write a letter.
Works.
Now,
Can.
Here's why we bring all of this up. I think that some of us, like, when these things happen, we allow them to impact these relationships, like, in a pretty significant way, like you and your friend, me and my friend. And what's really problematic is, like, sometimes these are actually, like, really good relationships that we love, right? Like, really good relationships that we want to have, like, things that actually bring value into our life. But because we perceive that there is, like, this thing, right, like this little wall that's been built between us, we just kind of, like, withdraw. Like, so for you and your friend, you're like, well, guess we're just not going to talk for a couple months. For me and my friend, it took us like 6 months to be able to work through the stuff that we were walking through.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, all it really would have taken in the first place was a simple conversation and an apology.
Sure.
But we kind of allow this fear or this thought in our mind that somebody is angry with us to be this thing that really just drives a wedge in between it. Now, I think this same kind of thing honestly exists for a lot of us in our relationship with Jesus. Right, like, I think there's this perception that Jesus is mad at us. Right now, for those who don't know Jesus, there's probably some reasons for that. Right, like, there's probably some reasons they think that God would be mad at them.
Yep.
What do you think some of those are?
Well, I mean, historically, there's a whole bunch of things. You got the Crusades.
Yep.
Not a great piece in our history. You got things like the Salem witch trials, where people are getting hanged and burned at the stake. You've got, I don't know, like, you've got the church's involvement in really racist things that have happened before, like, just like really, like, terrible behavior from churches in the past.
Yeah.
Not to mention just, like, really awful sermons that are wrong.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of stuff is still even happening today.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I can think of some churches who are known for, like, going and protesting at the funerals of dead soldiers.
Yeah.
Or people who live a lifestyle that they disagree with, and they're saying God hates you and you're burning in hell right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, no wonder there's some people out there who thinks that God doesn't love them, that God actually hates them.
Yeah, and that perception, it doesn't just have to come from, like, the church, but, like, we've talked a lot the past few weeks about how the ways that we treat people is the way that they view God. So if someone feels hated by Christians, or Christians are angry with that person, it would make sense to them to begin to believe that that's how God feels about them too.
Yep. Yeah, so a lot of people outside the church, they've got this perception, but for those of us who follow Jesus, if that's you and you're here, you go, yep, that's me. I think a lot of times some of us also probably think this as well, right? Like, why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, the biggest one is just embarrassment and shame that we have when we make a mistake.
Yeah.
Kind of a religious word for that could be sin, but anytime we know we've done something that is the opposite of what God would have wanted us to do, and we start to feel that, an assumption that I often go to is like, well, God doesn't want to talk to me right now. Like, He hates me.
Yeah, and a part of that could even be based on like the experiences that we've had with maybe our parents sometimes,
Sure.
right? When we do something that we're not supposed to do, get a bad grade, get
Big
a
time.
referral, detention, wreck the family car, like, like I've been guilty of that. My kids have done something. I'm like, go away. I need some space.
Yep.
Right. And so maybe sometimes we even like have that projection on that.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, like I really believe that because we have this view that God is maybe angry at us, that Jesus is maybe angry at us, like we get to a place where just like I was with my friend and maybe you were with yours for a little bit, like where we just think, man, is this relationship really worth the effort? Right? Like if it's always going to be this thing where like they're mad at me, like is it actually worth pursuing? But the question we've got to ask, and the question we have been asking these last several weeks is like, is that actually true though? Right? Is that actually the heart of God towards us? Is that what Jesus really thinks and feels towards us? Is he just angry? Does he just want to judge us? Is he just looking to punish us because of all the things that we've done? Or is it possible that maybe we've actually gotten it all wrong? And so we've been doing each week, we've been going to the Bible. We've been talking about what Scripture says, right? Because instead of us telling you what Jesus is like and what he feels, we'd rather just say like, hey, Jesus, who did you show us to be? Like, who are you? So, where are we going to start?
We should probably start at the Christmas story.
I know. Why would we start at the Christmas story? I know it's not Christmas, but there's actually a point to this, isn't there?
Absolutely.
why-
You want me to share it?
Yeah.
I'm happy to. Okay. So I'm assuming most of you are familiar with most of this, but like one of the reasons why we have all these decorations and stuff of the Christmas story and like Jesus coming is because it's this happy time that we celebrate. Like if God was really angry towards us, I don't know, maybe during Christmas time we'd be setting up these dioramas of like fireballs like coming down, burning villages, and just like plagues and like people dying in the streets. But that's not what happened on Christmas. When Jesus was born, angels started showing up and telling people, it's like, we've got really, really good news for you of great joy. God is pleased with you. And something really good has come for everybody because he loves everybody. So Jesus coming was this tone of like, God loves you. Get excited about this.
Yeah, and one of the things we see so clearly in Scripture is that like Jesus is the exact representation of who God is, right? And his thoughts and his words and his deeds and in his heart. And you've got these angels showing up going like, good news, great joy, right? Like this is the thing that God wants for us, right? Like this is the thing that God feels for us when he thinks about us. Like he feels great joy and he wants us to experience that joy. And like I was thinking about that as we were just kind of getting ready for this conversation. Like I don't know that a lot of people in the church think about those two words when they think about their relationship with Jesus. Right, like probably far more often we think about like judgment, we think about anger, we think about obligation, and yet from the very get-go, before Jesus was even born, it was good news, great joy.
Yep.
Man, like how different could our relationships look like with Jesus if like that was kind of our heart posture and the expectation that we had?
Yeah.
The message that Jesus came to bring, right? This thing that should fill us with great joy, this thing that truly was good news is it's really a simple message, right? Sometimes we try to make it like so complex in the church, but the message was this. It was like, man, he loves us. Like he is crazy about us. He is passionate about us.
Yeah.
And he doesn't love like the ideal version of who we could be. Right? He doesn't love like this perfect Stetson that's out there, this perfect Nate, or this perfect, fill in whatever your name is.
Those don't exist, by the way.
They don't.
We are far from perfect.
He loves us just as we are. Right? In fact, the Bible actually tells us that Jesus came to die for us, right? So that we can go back to that relationship with him. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, but like he did this for us while we were still sinners. Right? So the good news, the great joy, it wasn't given to people who have it all together. It was for people who are totally broken and know it.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep. It is, for sure. So, if this is where you're going, there's a few stories in the Bible that really show this.
Yes.
Should we go there?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the examples is Jesus was walking through a town, and there's this crowd of people, and there's this woman in the middle of the crowd, and they were about to, I think they're about to stone her to death, right?
Yep. And not like Colorado stoned.
Right.
Pick up big rocks, crush your skull.
Yeah. Old time stoning. So she had been caught sleeping around, which in that culture, in that time and place, was a really, really serious thing. And they were about to stone her for something that she had been caught in the act of, and then Jesus steps in and basically convinces the crowd that this would be a terrible thing to do. So right there, he's standing up and loving someone who had been caught red-handed doing something pretty terrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the other example too of like the woman at the well, this woman who had been married like 5 different times. Back then that would have made you like this untouchable, kind of evil, wicked person. Like God must really hate you. And we see Jesus not being mad or angry. He actually sits down, has a conversation with her, engages with her, speaks life over her, offers her like this living water. And it was this thing that actually caused her to walk away feeling this joy and telling everybody about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many examples of how Jesus does that exact thing, right? Like where this message he brings, it's not one of judgment and condemnation. It's one of hope and joy. Great news, right? Glad tidings.
Yep.
And I think what it shows me and what it reminds me of is like, man, like his love for us is never actually based on our performance, right? Like it's not contingent on how good or how bad we are. Like,
right.
And that's because of this thing we talked about last week. You remember that whole thing about the garden and where we begin the story?
Yep.
Right? Like if you weren't here last week, we basically said like, look, there's 2 ways to really basically understand the whole Christian story. There's a way where you begin in Genesis 3 and then a way in which you begin in Genesis 1, right? If you begin in Genesis 3, which is all about the fall and about how we messed up and brought sin into the world, then the entire purpose of all of Christianity is just to deal with our sin, right? And if that's kind of our lens through which we look at the whole Christian life and our relationship with Jesus, then of course we're going to think he's angry.
Yep.
Because he's mad that we sinned. He's mad that he had to come here and die for us. He's angry and he wants us to be good. But if we begin at Genesis 1, which is where we think you should actually begin the story, which is when God created everything, there was peace and it was good. It's like, oh, so the whole point of the story is just to get us back here.
Right.
And so God actually has great joy because he remembers this thing that we were made for. And he's not angry because we've gone astray. He actually wants us to come home and to experience joy and this good news that like even because of our sin, like we're not kicked out forever. Like we can actually get back to what we were designed for.
Yep. And he wouldn't bother trying to invite us back if he didn't love us.
Yeah.
He would just like, all right, get out.
Yeah. God is not angry with you. I read a book a couple years ago, and I think they made it a movie. It was called The Shack.
I never saw it.
And like whatever, it's a book. It's a good book. But basically in it, God kind of takes on the form of this big, Southern woman, and freaking awesome. You should read it. But she is often talking about people that and by she I mean God, but I'm just calling it she because it's the woman, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when God was talking about people, the way that God would always talk about them was this: to say, I am very fond of that one. Like every single person, like even if it was a person that nobody else liked, like God saw the beauty in each person.
Yep.
He saw the image within each person. And it was never like, oh, they screwed up, they're messed up, I hate them. It was like, no, I'm really fond of them. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, man, like I get that. Like my kids, I've got 4 kids in my house, 5 actually right now, because we have a foster kid. But like for my children, right, these kids that have been around since they were born, like, man, I'm so fond of them. Like I don't care what they do. I don't care if they color on my wall or if they break my iPad. They've done both of these things. I don't care if they scratch my car. They've done that. Like I'm still fond of them.
Yeah. We know the core of good that's inside
and
of
they
our
bring
kids.
me joy. And I think that's the biggest thing is like God, Jesus, they see the core of who we truly are.
Yep.
You see, we get too stuck looking at the outside, right? We look at our actions. We look at other people's actions, right? Like, oh, they lied, they stole, they said something bad about me. And yet God could actually see past all of that. The Bible tells us that he doesn't actually look at outward appearances. He looks at the heart. Like God knows your heart. the Bible tells us that you have been fearfully and wonderfully made. And this isn't just about like your outward appearance. Like, this is your soul. This is who you are. And he's fond of you. He's not angry with you. He's not mad at you. Like, he actually likes you.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, we talked about this story of this son who betrayed his father and basically wasted all of his money and then hit rock bottom and thought to himself, well, either I die here or I beg for my life back at my dad's house. And so he goes back home just expecting to just like be rejected. But on his way home, once his dad sees him coming, he comes running towards him. And I really think the context that most of us here feel that God must hate us is when we've done something wrong. But I was explaining to someone, it's like when we feel like we need to make up for these things that we've done wrong, it's a lot simpler than we believe it to be. Like if this janky shrubbery bush saying, look at this, what is this? Are these arms? Okay, all right. Let's say that is, I don't know, just going in the wrong direction, just like a bunch of messed up things. And here's God, water, life, really, really good. When we do something wrong, we're basically like walking away from God and being like, okay, like for today or tonight or whatever, I'm just not going to walk towards you. And we head all the way in this direction, and it feels like in order, follow me. So it feels like in order for God to love us again, we need to get all the way back. Stop moving this. We need to get all the way back to where we were when we started. But I really think it is as soon as we realize that we're heading in the wrong direction and we turn around, that's when God's like, yes, come with me. And it's just this concept. It's like we don't have to make up for all the mistakes. There's like a bunch of garbage that comes from those mistakes. But God is just always open and willing to like embrace us anytime we turn around and be like, I screwed up. It's like, awesome. Come home.
Well, and that's why we say that phrase often here, right? Like, God's love is not dependent upon our performance. Right? Like, he loves us no matter what. And the moment we turn around, like, I don't even think it's that God is like super distant and then he's going to run up to us. I think it's more like we turn around and we're like, oh, you've been here all along.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, that's who God is. He is always pursuing us. He is always chasing us. He's not mad.
Nope.
He loves us. And so we got a big idea for you guys tonight, just something if we're like, dude, what's the one thing that you guys could walk away with? And then we're going to break out into house parties and give you guys a chance to kind of process this in a more personal way. But what's our big idea?
Jesus is happy with you.
Yeah, he is. Like, he cares about you. He loves you. You bring him joy. And I really believe if you could accept that, if you could internalize that, it's going to change everything about the way that you engage your relationship with him, right? Because when you know a friend loves you, when you know a friend is happy in your presence and truly cares about you, it's a lot easier to go to them. Cool. All right, guys, we're going to send you off to house parties, and we'll be back next week.